The first time I really understood I was the family ATM, I was 22. My brother Kingsley was turning 24 and he wanted a big party. My parents were always tight on cash, a phrase that usually meant they'd just bought a new boat or something equally unnecessary. So I, Andrea, fresh out of college and already pulling decent money as a junior consultant, offered to cover the venue. It wasn't just the venue, it was the catering, the open bar, the DJ. By the end of the night, I'd dropped almost £5,000. Kingsley, who is 31 now, clapped me on the back then, called me the best sister ever, and then promptly forgot about it. He still owes me for that, and a dozen other things besides. Before going further, drop your location in the comments. I'm curious about my global family. That was just the beginning. There was Taya's influencer trip to Milan 2 years ago, when she was 25 and I was 27. She needed seed money for content creation, which translated to me paying for her flights and half her hotel. She promised to pay me back once her brand partnerships took off. Spoiler, they didn't, not in a way that ever funneled money back to my bank account. Taya is 27 now, still chasing that influencer dream. Then there was Aunt Zella's new car, down payment last year, when she was 53 and I was 28. She'd cried about her old clunker, how unsafe it was. I'd transferred the money without a second thought, the responsible one always stepping up. Aunt Zella is 54 now. My cousin Sophia, 23 at the time, once needed a loan for a new laptop for school. Sophia is 24 now. It was always something, always me. So when my phone rang last Tuesday and Aunt Zella's name popped up, I already had a knot in my stomach. Her voice was dripping with that particular brand of sickly sweet concern she reserved for delivering bad news. "Andrea, darling," she cooed, "how are you, sweetie?" "I'm good, Aunt Zella. What's up?" I kept my tone neutral. I was 29 and I'd learned to read the subtext. "Well, you know the Paris trip. We're all so excited. It's going to be just wonderful." She paused, a dramatic sigh. "And we've been trying to figure out the logistics, and it's just so tricky with the budget this year, you know, and limited space at the hotel." My heart sank. I knew exactly where this was going. Every family trip, I was the one who made sure everyone had a bed, who booked the bigger car, who quietly covered the unexpected costs. Last year, I'd paid for double suites in Hawaii just so Taya could have the king bed to herself while I slept on the pull-out couch. But Paris was different. Paris was a dream. "Right," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "What about it?" "Well, honey, we've had to make some really tough decisions," she continued, her voice practically dripping with false sympathy. "And with Taya bringing her new photographer, and Kingsley wanting to invite his new girlfriend, and Sophia needing her own room for her creative space." She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air like a bad smell. "It just meant we had to really, really tighten the guest list. For budget reasons, you understand. And limited space. So I'm not invited," I stated, not a question. A beat of silence. "Oh, Andrea, it's not like that. It's just, we thought you'd understand. You're so practical. You always are. And we know how busy you are with work. This is more of a family bonding trip, you know? Just the core group. The core group who always needed my core bank account." I swallowed the bitter taste. "Right, I understand." "Oh, good, I knew you would. You're always so sensible." "We'll bring you back a souvenir," she chirped, clearly relieved I wasn't making a scene. "Thanks, Aunt Zella," I said, my voice flat. We hung up. I stared at my phone, the screen still lit with her contact photo. My chest felt hollowed out, a familiar ache. I'd always been the one they called when they needed something, but never the one they truly wanted around. Later that night, I was curled up on my couch, trying to lose myself in a documentary, when my phone buzzed. It was Jayla, my best friend since college. Jayla, also 29, and the only one who truly got it. Her text read, "Girl, you seeing this?" Attached was a photo, a group shot. Tyre, Kingsley, Aunt Zella, Sophia, all grinning, champagne flutes raised. They were in an airport lounge, surrounded by what looked suspiciously like brand new designer luggage. Tyre, of course, had already posted it to her story. Paris bound with the fam, so excited for some quality time. My blood ran cold. Limited space, budget reasons, Tyre's new photographer, Kingsley's new girlfriend. None of them were in the photo, just the usual suspects, looking far too pleased with themselves. And that luggage. I recognised the pattern on Tyre's carry-on. Chanel. I zoomed in on the photo, my finger tracing the outline of Tyre's expensive bag. A cold, hard resolve settled in my gut, replacing the hurt. I whispered to myself, the words barely audible in the quiet apartment. Room in the budget for Chanel, though? My fingers moved, almost on their own, opening my laptop. I pulled up a flight booking site, then a luxury hotel chain. I knew which one they'd be staying at. They always went for the best deals that somehow always ended up being the most expensive, which I then inevitably subsidised. This time it would be different. This time I was booking for one. And I wasn't looking for a deal. The next few days were a blur of quiet, calculated action. While my family was probably already halfway across the Atlantic, toasting their budget-friendly trip with airport champagne, I was meticulously planning my own arrival. I didn't tell Jayla what I was doing, not yet. This was something I needed to execute in silence, a personal project. First, the flight. I pulled up my frequent flyer account. Years of business travel, countless red-eye flights, endless hotel stays. It had all accumulated. My family always assumed I flew economy, just like them, because I was sensible. They didn't know about the platinum status, the millions of miles I'd quietly hoarded, the upgrades I often declined because I was too tired to care. This time, I cared. I booked a first-class ticket, direct to Paris, for 2 days after their departure. The seat was practically a bed. I deserved it. Then, the hotel. I remembered Aunt Zella mentioning the limited space at their hotel. I knew which chain they favoured, the one with the decent loyalty programme that I'd always used for my work trips. A quick search confirmed it. The Grand Parisian, a 5-star property near the Louvre. I found the room types, the prices. My family, I knew, would have booked standard rooms, maybe a slightly larger one for Aunt Zella. I, however, wasn't looking for a standard room. My fingers hovered over the presidential suite option. It was exorbitant, but I had the miles and I had the cash. This wasn't about being sensible anymore. This was about being seen. I clicked confirm. As I packed, a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Last year, the Hawaii trip. It was supposed to be a big family reunion. I'd offered to pay for everyone's accommodation, a gesture I now recognised as a desperate attempt to buy their affection. I'd booked 2 adjoining suites, both with king beds. When we arrived, Tyre, then 26, had taken one look at the rooms and declared, "Oh, Andrea, you're so sweet, but I need the king bed for my content. The lighting is so much better in here." She'd pointed to the suite I'd mentally claimed for myself, the one with the ocean view. I, 28 at the time, had just nodded, too tired to argue, and ended up on the pull-out couch in the living room of the other suite. For a week. While Tyre posted endless selfies from her king bed, captioning them, "Island life, living my best life." I remembered the springs digging into my back every night, the faint smell of mildew from the couch cushions, and the quiet resentment that had started to simmer. It wasn't just about the bed. It was about the assumption, the entitlement, the complete lack of consideration. Now, as I folded a silk dress into my designer luggage, a gift from a grateful client, not something I'd bought to impress anyone, I felt a different kind of resolve. This wasn't about anger, not really. It was about reclaiming something, my dignity, my worth, my peace. My revenge wouldn't be loud or dramatic. No screaming matches, No public confrontations. That was their style. Mine would be quiet, elegant, and utterly disarming. It would be saturated with grace, a series of subtle reminders of what they had so casually discarded. The day of my flight arrived. I checked in online, breezed through security, and settled into my spacious first-class seat. The flight attendant offered me champagne before we even took off. I smiled, a genuine smile this time. The hum of the engines was a soothing lullaby. I pulled out my tablet, not to work, but to open the hotel's app. I wanted to confirm my booking, just for peace of mind. I typed in the hotel name, then my reservation number. The details popped up. Andrea Warren, Grand Parisian, Suite 419, Presidential Tier. My eyes scanned further down the page. There was a section for group bookings. Out of curiosity, I typed in the family's last name. Sure enough, a list appeared. Zella Warren, Taya Warren, Kingsley Warren, Sophia Warren, and next to each name, a room number. All on the same floor, just a few doors down from each other. I scrolled back up to my own reservation. Suite 419. I knew the layout of these hotels. Suite 419 was the largest, most luxurious suite on the entire floor. It was directly next to their cluster of standard rooms. I closed the app, a slow, knowing smile spreading across my face. This was going to be better than I'd imagined. I arrived in Paris 2 days after my family, refreshed and surprisingly calm. Stepping out of the taxi at the Grand Parisian, the ornate facade rose before me, a testament to old-world luxury. I walked through the revolving doors, past the gleaming marble floors and crystal chandeliers, feeling a quiet confidence I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a hotel, it was my stage. At the reception desk, a charming young man with impeccably styled hair greeted me. "Bonjour, Mademoiselle Warren. Welcome to the Grand Parisian." "We've been expecting you." "Bonjour," I replied, my French rusty but polite. "Andrea Warren checking in." He smiled, his eyes twinkling. "Ah, Mademoiselle Andrea, your suite is ready. Suite 419, the presidential tier. We've arranged for your luggage to be taken up immediately. Is there anything else I can assist you with?" I charmed him effortlessly, asking about the best local patisseries and the quietest spots for coffee. I made sure to mention casually that I was looking forward to a relaxing stay, perhaps by the pool later. I tipped him generously, a crisp €50 note discreetly palmed. His smile widened. "Of course, mademoiselle, the pool is quite lovely this time of day. We have a few cabanas available if you prefer privacy." "Perfect," I said. "Perhaps I'll see you later." My suite was everything I'd imagined and more. High ceilings, a sprawling living area, a separate bedroom with a king-size bed that looked like it could swallow me whole, and a marble bathroom bigger than my entire apartment back home. The view from the balcony overlooked the Seine, the Eiffel Tower, a majestic silhouette in the distance. I unpacked slowly, savouring every moment. This was what budget reasons had cost them. After settling in, I slipped into a plush white spa robe, thicker and softer than any hotel robe I'd ever encountered, and headed down to the pool. I knew my family would be there. Taya would be trying to get the perfect poolside selfie. Kingsley would be splashing around like a kid. Aunt Zella would be holding court, and Sophia would be giggling at Taya's jokes. I had timed my entrance perfectly. The pool area was bustling, but not overly crowded. I spotted them immediately. Their cabana was tucked away in a corner, just as I'd been told. Taya, in a bright pink swimsuit, was indeed posing for Sophia, who was holding up a phone. Kingsley was cannonballing into the shallow end, splashing Aunt Zella, who was already looking annoyed. I walked past them slowly, deliberately. My pace was unhurried, my head held high. The spa robe billowed slightly with each step, pristine white against the vibrant blues of the pool. My oversized sunglasses hid my eyes, but I could feel their gazes. I heard Kingsley's splash die down, Taya's laughter cut short. As I drew level with their cabana, I heard Aunt Zella gasp, a tiny choked sound. Taya's grip tightened around her wineglass, her knuckles white. I didn't break stride. I didn't acknowledge them. I just kept walking, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on my lips. I heard a whisper. "Is that Andrea?" from Sophia. I continued to the far end of the pool, where a lone cabana sat empty, slightly larger and more secluded than theirs. I settled in, ordered a fresh squeezed orange juice and opened a book, pretending to read. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw them. They were huddled together, whispering furiously, occasionally glancing over at me. Taya had stopped posing. Aunt Zella looked pale. Kingsley was no longer splashing. The energy in their cabana had shifted from carefree vacation to bewildered confusion. That evening, after a leisurely dinner in my suite, I called the concierge. "Bonjour," I said. "This is Andrea Warren in Suite 419. I'd like to send a few bottles of your finest rosé to the table occupied by the Warren family in the main dining room. Please tell them it's from Suite 419. There was a slight pause on the other end, then a knowing chuckle. "Certainly, Mademoiselle Warren." An excellent choice, right away. I pictured their faces, the moment the waiter would approach their table, present the bottles, and deliver the message. It wouldn't be a grand gesture of forgiveness. It would be a quiet, elegant reminder. A ghost in the machine, a whisper of my presence, a taunt of my privilege, the first ripple in their carefully constructed facade. The next morning, I decided to treat myself to the hotel spa. It was an oasis of calm, scented with lavender and eucalyptus. I settled into a plush lounge chair after a swim, sipping cucumber water, feeling utterly serene. It wasn't long before my peace was disturbed. "Andrea, is that really you?" I opened my eyes slowly. Aunt Zella stood over me, her face a mixture of surprise and forced pleasantness. Her hair was wrapped in a towel, and she looked smaller somehow, without her usual layers of makeup and carefully chosen outfits. She was 54, and for the first time she looked it. "Aunt Zella," I said, my voice calm, almost bored. "What a surprise." She fidgeted, her eyes darting around the opulent spa. I can't believe you're here. I thought you said you were so busy." "I am busy," I replied, taking a slow sip of my water. "But I always make time for Paris. I come every summer, don't you?" Her jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. She knew perfectly well I didn't come every summer. This was my first time in Paris. But she also knew that I knew she was lying about the budget reasons for their trip. The implication hung heavy in the air. I can afford this whenever I want. You can't. A memory flashed, sharp and unwelcome. 5 years ago, when I was 24, Aunt Zella, then 49, had called me in a panic. Her mortgage payment was due and she was short. "Just a little help, darling," she'd pleaded, her voice thick with tears. "Just this once." "I'll pay you back, I promise." I'd felt a familiar pang of guilt, the weight of being the responsible one. I'd transferred the full amount, enough to cover her payment and then some. She never mentioned it again, let alone paid me back. That had been another brick in the wall of resentment I was slowly building. "Well," Aunt Zella finally managed, "it's just quite a coincidence, isn't it, that we're all here?" "Is it?" I smiled sweetly. "I suppose great minds think alike." She mumbled something about meeting Taya and scurried off, clearly uncomfortable. I watched her go, a quiet satisfaction spreading through me. This was exactly what I wanted. Not a fight, but a subtle dismantling of their carefully constructed narrative. Throughout the day, these small acts of revenge continued, almost without my direct intervention. I saw the concierge, the charming young man from yesterday, greet me by name in the lobby, a warm smile on his face, right as Aunt Zella and Taya walked past, looking disgruntled. They were clearly struggling with something. I overheard snippets of their conversation later, by the elevator. "They said there are no upgrades available," Tyre whined, and I asked about a better view and they just laughed. Aunt Zella sighed dramatically. It's ridiculous. For what we're paying. I walked past them, my head held high, a small knowing smile on my face. The concierge, seeing me, nodded deferentially. Mademoiselle Warren, your car for this evening is confirmed for 7. Their heads whipped around. I just kept walking. Later that afternoon, I was enjoying a glass of champagne at the hotel bar, scrolling through my phone, when Kingsley, my 31-year-old brother, approached. He looked sheepish, a rare expression for him. He was usually the jokester, deflecting everything with a laugh. "Hey, Andrea," he said, pulling up a stool next to me. "Fancy seeing you here." "Kingsley?" I replied, my voice cool. "What a surprise." He tried to laugh it off, but it sounded forced. "Yeah, well, you know, Paris, family trip. Pretty cool, huh?" "Cool," I agreed, taking a sip of my champagne. He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, about the trip. Aunt Zella really tried to get you in, but it was just so tight, you know." "Budget and all that?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Kingsley, you still owe me for your 24th birthday party and the loan for your car repairs last year and the time you forgot your wallet at dinner." His face flushed. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. I caught the eye of the waiter passing by. "Excuse me," I said, handing him my card. "Dinner's on whoever didn't lie." I looked back at Kingsley, my gaze unwavering. He stared at my card in the waiter's hand, then back at me. He didn't argue. He just sat there, silent, the usual bravado completely gone. He knew I wasn't just talking about the trip. He knew I was talking about everything. And for the first time, he had no joke to deflect with. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a call from Jayla. "Okay, spill," she demanded, skipping any pleasantries. "What in the world is going on over there?" Tyre just posted some cryptic story about trust issues and family drama, and my DMs are blowing up with Sophia and our cousins asking what's up. I leaned back against the plush headboard of my king-sized bed, a croissant in one hand, coffee in the other. "Nothing much," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. "Just enjoying Paris, and apparently so is my family." "Andrea?" Jayla's voice was serious now. "Are you sure you're not getting lost in this?" "I get it, they're infuriating, but don't let their pettiness drag you down. This isn't about proving a point, is it?" "It's not about revenge, Jayla," I corrected her, my voice firm. "It's about truth. It's about them finally seeing what they've always chosen to ignore, what they've taken for granted. For years, I've been the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who just understands when they need money or a favour. This isn't about payback. It's about making them acknowledge the cost of their actions. It's about me reclaiming my value, not just my money." Jayla was silent for a moment. "Okay," she finally said, a note of understanding in her voice. "I get it. Just be careful. They're good at twisting things." She wasn't wrong. A few hours later, I saw Tyre's latest Instagram story. It was a selfie, her face artfully angled to look thoughtful, almost sad. The caption read, "Some people just can't handle genuine family love, always looking for drama where there's none. Trust issues are real, y'all. Key family first, positive vibes only." I rolled my eyes, the sheer audacity. As if I was the one with trust issues. I remembered the Milan trip 2 years ago. I was 27, Tyre 25. I'd paid for her flights, a significant chunk of her hotel, and even given her extra cash for expenses. She'd promised to pay me back from her brand partnerships. When I gently reminded her a few months later, she'd acted offended. "Andrea, it's not about the money. It's about supporting small content creators. Don't you want to see me succeed?" She'd turned it into my selfishness, my lack of support. I'd backed down as always, but not this time. Later that afternoon, I found myself back at the hotel bar. The same bartender from yesterday, a man with kind eyes and a subtle smattering of freckles, was polishing glasses. He looked up and offered a genuine smile. Mademoiselle Warren, he said, his accent charming. Welcome back, the usual? Please, I replied, taking a seat, and just Andrea is fine. Andrea, he repeated, testing the name. I'm Brock Lewis. He was 32, I guessed, maybe 33. There was a quiet strength about him, a sense of having seen a lot. We fell into easy conversation. I ordered a glass of rosé and he started telling me about the hotel's history, the hidden gems of Paris. Without meaning to, I found myself confiding in him, a little. Not about the specifics of my family, but about the feeling of being taken for granted, the quiet exhaustion of always being the strong one. He listened, really listened without judgment. When I finished, he paused, then said, You know, I see a lot of people come through here. Some are loud, some are quiet, but the ones who leave the biggest impression aren't always the ones making the most noise. He slid my rosé across the bar. Power's not payback, it's being unbothered. His words hit me. Being unbothered, that was it. That was the core of what I was trying to achieve. Not to hurt them, but to show them that their actions no longer had the power to hurt me. As I was finishing my drink, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the hotel. A personalised invitation to an exclusive spa sunset cocktail hour for select guests, happening that evening on the rooftop terrace. My suite number, 419, was prominently displayed on the invitation. I smiled. This was perfect. I knew my family wouldn't be invited. Their standard rooms wouldn't qualify them for such an exclusive event. I pictured them, downstairs in their regular rooms, probably bickering over dinner plans. And then I pictured them finding out about my cocktail hour. The thought of their faces, the dawning realization that I was not only here, but enjoying a level of luxury entirely separate from their own, was a sweet, quiet victory. This wasn't about revenge, jailer. This was about truth. And the truth, sometimes, was a very exclusive invitation. The Spa Sunset Cocktail Hour was everything the invitation promised and more. The rooftop terrace offered breathtaking views of the Parisian skyline, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. Soft jazz music drifted through the air, and attentive staff circulated with trays of delicate canapés and sparkling drinks. I wore a simple, elegant black dress, feeling completely at ease. It wasn't long before the first of them tried to approach. Aunt Zella, 54, looking slightly out of place in a dress that seemed a bit too formal for a casual cocktail hour. She spotted me by the railing, a glass of champagne in my hand, gazing at the Eiffel Tower as it began to sparkle. Andrea, she began, her voice a little too loud, a little too saccharine. There you are, we were wondering where you'd disappeared to. I turned, a polite, distant smile on my face. Aunt Zella, lovely party, isn't it? She shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Yes, well, it's very exclusive. We didn't even know about it. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. Perhaps it's for guests in certain suites. The implication hung in the air, thick and undeniable. Look, Andrea, she lowered her voice, a practised tone of maternal concern creeping in. We're still family, you know. This whole thing, it's not like us. We should be enjoying Paris together. Family, I repeated, my voice flat. Family borrows and repays, Aunt Zella. Liars take and disappear. Her eyes widened slightly. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The usual guilt trip wasn't working. She mumbled something about finding Kingsley and retreated, defeated. Next was Kingsley, 31. He approached me with a forced casualness, a drink in his hand. Hey, Andrea, this is pretty swanky. Didn't know you were into these kinds of things. There's a lot you don't know about me, Kingsley, I said, meeting his gaze. He tried the sincerity angle, something rare for him. Look, I know you're mad about the trip, and yeah, maybe we messed up, but we're family. We always figure it out. Do we? I asked, a ghost of a smile on my lips. Or do I always figure it out, and you all just benefit? He fidgeted, his usual jokester demeanour completely gone. He had no witty comeback, no deflection. He just stood there, looking genuinely uncomfortable. It was almost sad, seeing him so stripped of his usual bravado. He eventually just nodded, mumbled, "Yeah, well," and walked away. As the evening progressed, I saw Sophia, 24, hovering near the entrance, clearly hoping to be let in. She kept glancing at me, then looking away when I met her eye. Taya, 27, didn't even try. She was too busy posting from their standard room, probably trying to make it look more glamorous than it was. I found myself gravitating towards the bar, where Brock, 32, was expertly mixing cocktails. He caught my eye and offered a warm smile. "Still unbothered, I see," he murmured, sliding a fresh glass of rosé towards me. "Working on it," I admitted, a genuine laugh escaping me. We talked for a while, about nothing in particular, just easy conversation. He asked about my work. I asked about his life in Paris. There was a subtle flirtation in his eyes, a gentle curiosity that was disarmingly pleasant. For the first time since this whole Paris saga began, I felt a flicker of something beyond the calculated satisfaction of revenge. A lightness, a possibility of a future where my worth wasn't tied to my family's approval or their financial needs. Just a blink, a momentary dream of something new. The party was winding down when a hotel staff member, looking flustered, approached me. "Mademoiselle Warren?" "I apologise, but there seems to have been a mistake." He held out a delicate bouquet of white roses, tied with a pink ribbon. These were meant for Mademoiselle Taya Warren, but they were mistakenly delivered to Suite 419. My eyes flickered to the card attached to the bouquet. It was from a new brand partnership Taya had been trying to secure. This was clearly meant to be a big moment for her, a public display of her success. Before I could respond, a furious voice cut through the air. "Those are my flowers!" Taya stood there, her face contorted in a mask of rage, her eyes blazing. She must have seen the staff member heading towards my suite and followed him. She looked dishevelled, clearly having rushed up from her room. I simply looked at the staff member, then back at Taya. I didn't say a word. I just took a slow, deliberate sip of my cocktail, the glass cool against my fingers. The roses, pristine and elegant, sat on the bar between us. Taya stood fuming, her carefully constructed influencer facade crumbling around her. The silence in the nearly empty bar was deafening. The next evening was the family's final group dinner, booked at a supposedly exclusive restaurant within the hotel. I hadn't been invited, of course, but I knew where they would be. I had made my own reservation for a table across the room, far enough to maintain my distance, close enough to observe. I arrived fashionably late, gliding into the elegant dining room. My family was already seated at a large round table, their faces grim. Taya, 27, looked particularly sullen, probably still stewing about the flower incident. Aunt Zella, 54, was picking at her bread, her usual matriarchal air diminished. Sophia, 24, kept glancing nervously around. Kingsley, 31, was the only one who even attempted to salvage the mood, trying to crack a joke that fell flat. I settled into my table, ordered a glass of champagne and watched them. They were avoiding my gaze, pretending I wasn't there. It was a familiar tactic, one they'd perfected over the years. The quiet exclusion, the subtle dismissal. I remembered countless dinners like this. The time I was 23, and Kingsley, then 25, had convinced me to cover his portion of a family vacation rental because he was between jobs. I'd paid, and he'd spent the entire week making fun of my sensible shoes. Or the Christmas when I was 26, and Aunt Zella, 51, had gushed over the expensive designer bag Taya, 24, had received, completely ignoring the thoughtful handmade gift I'd spent weeks crafting for her. It was never about the money, not really. It was about being seen, being valued, being acknowledged, and I was never any of those things. I finished my champagne, the bubbles doing little to lighten the heavy atmosphere. I caught the eye of the waiter, a different one from the bar, but equally professional. I gave him a subtle nod, then signalled for the bill. He approached my table discreetly. Mademoiselle? Yes, I said, my voice clear, carrying just enough to reach their table. Could you please put this dinner, the entire table's bill, to suite 419? A hush fell over their table. Forks clattered against plates. Heads slowly turned. Their eyes, wide with shock, landed on me. I met their gazes, one by one. Aunt Zella's face was a mask of disbelief. Tyre's jaw dropped. Sophia looked utterly bewildered. Kingsley, for once, had no joke, no quip. Then, before any of them could utter a word, before they could protest or thank me or try to twist it, I added, my voice calm and steady, "Dinner's on whoever didn't lie." The weight of the moment crushed the table. The words hung in the air, echoing the sentiment I delivered to Kingsley at the bar. But this time, it wasn't just him. It was all of them. The budget reasons, the limited space, the family bonding trip that excluded me, the years of taking, of promising, of forgetting. The years of me being the silent backbone, the ATM, the one who always understood, who always forgave. No one spoke. No one offered to take my cue, to admit their deception. The silence was deafening, thick with unspoken accusations and dawning realization. I looked at their faces, truly looked at them. They weren't angry, not anymore. They were exposed. And for the first time, I felt truly free of them. I pushed my chair back, the soft scrape against the floor the only sound in the room. I stood up, smoothing the front of my dress. I didn't say goodbye. There were no goodbyes to be said. I simply turned and walked out of the dining room, my head held high, leaving them in their stunned silence. The next morning, my phone was a flurry of activity. The family group chat, usually buzzing with trivial updates and passive-aggressive memes, was completely silent. No one had posted since the dinner. I scrolled through the unread messages, a faint smile on my lips. Then, with a decisive tap, I removed myself from the chat permanently. The silence was louder than any scream. The morning after the dinner, the Parisian light filtered through the tall windows of suite 419, painting stripes across the polished floor. I lay in the enormous marble tub, the water still warm, a tray balanced precariously on the edge. Croissants, flaky and buttery, sat next to a steaming cup of espresso. The Eiffel Tower, still visible from my bathroom window, seemed to shimmer in the distance. I closed my eyes, a deep, cleansing breath filling my lungs. There was no anger left, no simmering resentment, just a profound, almost overwhelming sense of peace. It wasn't the triumphant roar of victory, but the quiet hum of dignity reclaimed. For so long, my worth had been tied to their approval, their acceptance, their need for me. I had been the dependable one, the generous one, the one who always understood. But in their eyes, that had simply translated to the one we can take for granted. Now the strings were cut. The silence from their end was no longer a wound. It was a vast open space where I could finally breathe. I thought of Brock, the bartender. His words, "Power's not payback, it's being unbothered," had resonated deeply. He had seen past the facade, recognized the quiet pain beneath. I picked up my phone, still damp from the steam, and navigated to the hotel's website. I found the review section and began to type. 5 stars unequivocally. My stay at the Grand Parisian has been nothing short of transformative. The presidential suite, 419, offered unparalleled comfort and breathtaking views. Every staff member was exceptional, but I must specifically commend the spa team for their serene atmosphere and the outstanding service at the main bar. Brock, the bartender, was particularly insightful and made my evenings truly enjoyable. His professionalism and genuine kindness are a credit to your establishment. This hotel truly understands the meaning of luxury and peace. Highly recommend for anyone seeking an uninterrupted, truly restorative experience. I submitted it anonymously, a small gesture of appreciation for the genuine human connection I'd found amidst my calculated act. It wasn't about him, not really, but about the feeling he'd helped me access. After a long, luxurious shower, I dressed in a simple, comfortable outfit. I wasn't going anywhere fancy, I just wanted to feel the city, unburdened. Before I left my suite, I took one last look at the view. The infinity pool on the rooftop was glistening under the morning sun. An idea sparked. I walked up to the rooftop, the air crisp and cool. The pool was almost empty. I slipped into the water, the cool embrace a stark contrast to the warmth of the tub. I swam a few laps, feeling my muscles stretch, the tension draining away with each stroke. Then I positioned myself at the edge of the infinity pool, the Eiffel Tower perfectly framed behind me. I set my phone on a timer, angled it just right, and took a single photo. My silhouette, strong and serene, against the iconic Parisian backdrop. I posted it to my social media, something I rarely did. No long rambling caption, no hashtags about family or vacation, just 3 simple words: solo season, uninterrupted. I didn't check for likes or comments. I didn't care. This wasn't for them. This was for me. As I put my phone back in my bag, it lit up. A text from Kingsley, then another from Sophia. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I knew what they would say. Apologies, attempts to smooth things over, invitations to talk, to fix things. But there was nothing to fix. I wasn't broken. I left the hotel a few hours later, my luggage lighter than when I arrived, not because I'd bought less, but because I'd shed a lifetime of emotional baggage. The concierge, the same charming young man, bid me a warm farewell. "We hope to see you again soon, Mademoiselle Warren." "You will," I promised, a genuine smile on my face. As the taxi pulled away from the Grand Parisian, I looked back at the grand facade. I still heard my laugh at that pool, a clear, uninhibited sound. And how no one dared to interrupt it.